kiddos, we're going to do a quick run through of the weekly schedule that you're going to get from me every week. Every week you will get a link to a Google Sheet that will essentially have what we're doing that week laid out for you, organized, color-coded, all of that stuff. And so I really briefly want to talk about what the color coding means and how you can see all the organization there. So you'll see that each class has its own color set up. So Honors Chemistry 1 is all in yellow here. I'll explain this different yellow here in a minute. Well, I'll just do it right now. That's for the virtual class. AP Chem is here in pink or mauve. And then Organic Chemistry is going to be in the green down here at the bottom. So first off, let me start off with Organic Chemistry. For you all, you won't see generally as detailed a schedule because you guys are asynchronous, and so I don't have specific deadlines or due dates, or specifically on Tuesday you should be working on this thing. Instead, I'm going to sort of post something like this where it says, hey, by Friday, look in Canvas, you should have everything up to this point done at this point. What you will note, and what I will say for all of you all, is that anytime you see something in red, the writing, that means that that is an assessment. So for organic, this is just sort of note that you've got an assessment coming up. Generally speaking, the first line of class for AP Chem, as you see here, or for Honors Chem, as you see here, that first line denotes what assessments you have on those days. So like for Honors Chem, you don't have any assessments this week. For AP Chem, you've got 2 daily quizzes, one on Thursday and one on Friday. Below that line, so like here for Honors Chem, if you look at these 2 lines, usually anything that's in black text is just sort of a general description of what we're doing that day. You can think of that as your standards and objectives for that day. So we're going to be doing practicing some sig figs, reviewing scientific notation on that day. On Tuesday, we're going to be finishing up our discussion of the models of matter and starting to talk about confidence in measurement. Okay. If I'm lecturing on a given day, usually it'll say lecture or discussion of this particular topic, so that you'll sort of know. So particularly this is really useful, obviously, if you're out, and then you can know what's going on that day. The third or fourth line down, sort of depending on where it is, but regardless of where it is, if it's in green, that means that that's videos. So those are videos that you should watch, and this goes for pretty much everything on the sheet. When I put something on a certain day, so like this is Tuesday, so for Honors Chem, on Tuesday, they should watch the video for significant figures that night. It doesn't mean that it's due that night, but it means that if you're following along in the normal progression of the way we're doing things in class, that video should come after whatever we talked about in class that day. So those videos are always going to be in green. You'll see the mark here for AP Chem as well. And they're usually going to be 1 line above the last line for that color. The last line is almost always written in blue. I try to make it a pretty bright blue so it stands out. Those are the things that you directly have to turn into Canvas. Now here's the thing. This is what makes this difficult for some students. When I put them on a given day, that doesn't mean that they're due that day. It means that you should start them that day. The due dates are always in Canvas. And so what you see on the schedule here is the day that we're either going to be working on those things in class or the day that you should start working them for homework. So for instance, in AP Chem on Wednesday, we're going to have a lecture. We're going to talk a little bit about mass spec, techniques and calculations. And then that evening, you're going to start practicing. You're going to start doing the problem set for mass spec, okay? And so usually the way it lines up is we've talked about it in class, or we've done some activity, and then down at the bottom there you'll see the problem set where we're practicing that thing. Now most of the time we're going to start those things in class, and of course sometimes we won't finish them in class. They're usually not due on that date. They are usually due whenever, like usually 2 days later, but check the due dates in Canvas. I'm not going to put due dates here in the schedule. I put the start dates here in the schedule. Canvas does a great job of telling you when due dates are, but sometimes it doesn't tell you when you should start. That's what the weekly schedule's for. You'll also note that there's like a bright yellow box here. Whenever we have a lab, I always put that in bright yellow, because that way that's your indication to let you know, make sure that you've got all your proper safety gear, that you wore your closed-toed shoes to lab that day, that maybe if you're going to wear that thing with the really fringy sleeves that was hanging down, that maybe that's a bad idea because we're doing lab that day. So that's the indication there. So one last thing, if you're in my virtual L2 class, chemistry class, you'll notice that while your stuff is still in the normal schedule here in yellow, that you've got a slightly different shade of yellow. And what I've done there is I've just sort of described what's going to be different for you that day than what would be normal on that day in class. So like on Thursday, there's nothing really different. You're pretty much going to be doing the exact same thing that my L1 class is doing. But you'll notice on Tuesday that you've got a slightly different assignment. And so if you go into Canvas, you'll see an assignment that says virtual in parentheses next to it. And that'll be your indication that you're going to do that. All right, so that pretty much wraps this up, guys. You're going to get one of these every week. And I hope that this is really helpful to you in your organization of your week.